ministry is a calling of God, and I believe sometimes a lifetime calling. There was a time when I would have had difficulty in seeing myself in ministry at the age of 30 with youth, or 35, and especially 40 and beyond. I've come to a point now, however, after meeting some of the most effective youth pastors in the country, being older than myself, to the point where I can see myself possibly being in youth ministry at the age of 50, 60, 70, who knows. I believe that one of the problems that we experience today is the idea of the generation gap, and I'm not so sure that that is a real problem. I think it can be, but I don't think that it has to be. I wonder how many of you know of people that are up in years, 30s, 40s, beyond, that are effective with youth ministry today? How many of you are familiar with those kind of ministries? You know, I think we're going to see, yes, thank you. I think we're going to see more and more of that developing in the years to come. I believe there are two major reasons that youth ministry is important today. Number one, I believe in the old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Some of you have seen the oil filter commercial where the mechanic is holding up the oil filter and saying, "You can pay me now," or as he points to an engine being rebuilt, "You can pay me later." And I think that's the way it is with our young people. We can either invest some time and ministry into our young people now, or else spend countless hours of counseling trying to rebuild lives and families later on in life. In addition to this, I believe that youth ministry is an important dimension in church growth. Over the years, I've had many families come to me and inform me that choosing a church, in choosing our church, a major factor was the youth ministry that was available to them and to their children. Just recently, I had one of our men come to me and say that he had decided against relocating in a different city for a better job, and the major factor in that decision was he wanted his children to be raised in the youth ministry at the Madison Gospel Tabernacle. So I think it not only can be a factor in growing churches, but maintaining as well. We have experienced some degree of success with youth at the Madison Gospel Tabernacle, and in considering some key words that might explain the success that we have had, I came up with the following: prayer, patience, perseverance, persistence, people, and programs. And I'm sure all of you preachers could come up with a lot more words beginning with P that would be appropriate, but I want to deal with those mainly today. Obviously, we begin with prayer, and I do want to stress this. So many times we neglect the basics, and I think this is the foundation of all of the basics. For us, it's been the key to all of these other keys, these other key words. It's been a few years ago that my ministry with youth really began to, I feel, become effective. And I believe the reason for that is because a few years ago, God clearly spoke to me that I was to begin at least a couple of times a year taking a few days out of my time to get away, to check into a motel, to hear from God, to get alone with Him, to pray, to fast, and to find what God's idea was, what His plan was, to see His vision for what He wanted to do with our youth. The result of that has been that He has given patience, He's given perseverance and persistence. You see, when you know what God is wanting to do, no matter what comes against you, no matter what the problems and difficulties are, if you know what God's will is and what He's wanting to do, you're able to stand against whatever might come. In addition to this, through this process, He has shown us the right people to work with us. He has given us the right programs and helped us to move into them and make them effective with our young people. The result has been, for us, especially in the last few years, a great deal of growth, numerically as well as spiritually with our young people. Presently, we're ministering to approximately 200 junior high through college and career kids, and we believe that God has much more ahead for us. What would you estimate to be the length of stay for the average youth pastor? Any guesses?
9 months.
9 months. Any other guesses? How many of you feel like it would be more than that? Less. Okay. Depending on the denomination, it's going to be between 6 and 18 months. I think there are a number of reasons for this rather sad statistic. I think one of the main ones is the fact that very few Bible colleges really effectively, adequately prepare our young people for youth ministry. Now, I don't know about you and your background, but I know for me, after 4 years of Bible college, I found almost nothing that helped me in any way in actually practically working with young people. Practically nothing. I am happy to know that there are some changes taking place today. There are many Bible colleges beginning to realize the importance of this area and are developing ministries in this area. On the way here on the plane, talking with Darrell Merrill from the Christian Life College in Chicago, he had me read over a paper that one of his young men had written on youth ministry. And I was very pleased at the content of that. And when I asked him the question, is he putting this into practice, I expected a no. Well, he'll get that, after he gets out of school. And I was pleased to find out that they do have a program where he's actually using that material now. You see, you can learn over a 4-year period of time a great deal of material, but by the time you get out of school, 90-some% of it is going to be forgotten. We need to be able to apply it as we're learning it. So I'm glad to see that there are some Bible colleges today that are moving into this area. Another reason for dropout or short-term ministry among youth pastors is the fact that much of our leadership in churches today are very negative about youth ministry. They look upon it almost as a babysitting ministry, and therefore there's very minimal energy or time or planning, budgeting for the youth ministry. And so the youth pastor, in frustration, resigns. I think a major reason, perhaps the most important reason, is because of the fact that working with youth is different than working with adults. You're not going to see the same kind of results with youth as far as quick fruit. Usually if we lead an adult to Christ, that adult is going to go on and mature quickly and rapidly. But young people are at a point in their life where they're very unstable, there's a tremendous amount of peer pressure in their lives, and they're just not going to be consistent in their Christian walk. Those of you that have worked with youth, you know the experience of even some of your best young people having their down days or weeks or months or even years. And so it can be a very frustrating thing for a youth pastor to move into a youth ministry and put everything into it, and after 6 months or even a year see very little fruit. And oftentimes that's the case. I believe that a youth pastor is not going to see any fruit to the extent, in the sense of an effective youth ministry in that body, until he's been there at least 2 or 3 years. I know for myself, I'm in my 6th year now, completing my 6th year, and I feel like we're just on the threshold of really moving into the ministry that God is wanting us to have. Once you have been at a place for a couple of years and you start to see things happening with your youth, that is an exciting time. When you finally cross that line where you start seeing something solid and permanent happening in your young people, to see these people maturing into men and women of God, I want to share with you one example. 5 years ago, a young lady, 13 years old, started attending our activities. She came from a home that was broken. Her 15-year-old sister had run away several months ago. She never has returned. She was not a good-looking girl. She was not bright. She had been through some very difficult circumstances. She had been raped by an uncle. She had very little going for her. In the past year, this same young lady, in her senior year of high school, has become the leader of the most effective Bible study in the largest school in Madison. She has been voted by her peers in the youth group as the person having the most positive spiritual influence in our youth group in the last year. She is registered for Bible college next fall, and her goal in life is to work with other young people. That kind of experience will do a lot as far as making up for those failures and those that are dropouts. There are many others that I could share with you. Young people right now at Bible college, 3 of them that I can think of at the moment. In the next year or 2 will be graduating. Their goal is to come back and work with the youth. And I think of some of these young people and the difficulties and the questions in my mind, are they ever going to make it? And now their goal is to be involved in youth ministry. It's an exciting thing to be in a youth pastorate beyond those first initial 2 or 3 years. And I should say, not that it's not those first 2 or 3 years, but the problem is so many people going into youth ministry do not realize those first couple of years are building years. And so many go in expecting fruit right away, and they're disappointed as a result, and oftentimes feel that youth ministry was a mistake, that God did not call them into it when he may very well have. Well, I want to talk also about persistence, and when I say that, I'm talking about being on the offensive in developing your ministry, in expanding and multiplying it. If you have put together a program, a ministry that is effective, God is going to bless it with growth, and growth necessitates change. Now, I don't care what kind of a program you may have. You may feel like you have got finally the perfect program together. But I'll guarantee you, unless you are in the process of changing that almost daily, continuing to reevaluate and update it and improve it, expand it, you're going to find a week from now, a year from now, that you're going to have an ineffective ministry, or at least not as effective as it can be. 6 years ago, we began with our ministry at the Madison Gospel Tabernacle. And when we had our first youth meeting, we had between 25 and 30 people there, and they were between the ages of 11 and 31. And we had put together a program that was very effective. It worked, and it resulted in growth. But I want you to know, if we were continuing right now to use that same program, we probably wouldn't have 25 or 30 people. You have got to continually update and reevaluate what you have. Right now we have 4 distinct groups with elaborate ministries to each one, for the junior high, for the high school, for the college, and for the career. They're all different stations in life and have different needs. There are times when it's good and appropriate to do things with them all together, because they need to have that body ministry with the different ages. But they all have special needs, and we need to be ministering to them as individuals on their level. Another way that you can be on the offensive in developing your ministry is to check out other ministries. We have a dynamic youth ministry about 75 miles south of us in Rockford. Some of you are familiar with Ernie Moen's ministry there. We developed a good relationship with the youth ministries that are involved there. And we enjoy fellowship with them, and we enjoy learning from what the things that they're doing. And they're getting some things from us. In the city itself, and this may be difficult, because oftentimes within the city, pastors are suspicious of each other. It's unfortunate, but it's true. But if you can establish something with 2 or 3 or a dozen other youth pastors where you get together once a month or even once every 3 months and share with one another what's going on in your personal life, if you can get that intimate with each other, but at least what's going on in one another's ministries and what can you learn from each other. You'll find this is a tremendous added dimension to your ministry. All right, another thing that you can do, and it's only been in the last few years that I've been taking advantage of this, there are a lot of sharp people all over this country that are having seminars and conferences for youth ministries. Now, this is fantastic to come to a convention like this. I know that we've all received probably more than we've paid for already. But the emphasis is not specifically on youth ministry. I'm glad that they have at least, one session for this, and I'm going to try to give you everything I've got in one shot here. But I'll tell you, a year ago, our board sent my wife and I to San Francisco to a convention called Mainstream. Some of you are familiar with it. Rich Wilkerson is the president of this. And for 3 days and evenings, my wife and I listened to the top people in the country today in youth ministry. And I'll tell you, when you go away from there, you're not going to be the same when you go to something like this. Now, there are these kind of seminars and conferences. There are also the one-day ones, youth specialties. We went to one of those last month in Milwaukee. They have them all over the country. I'm sure that there are ministries similar to this in Canada, though I'm not personally familiar with them. I would say this, you need at least once a year to get into something like this. And you will find that whatever the investment is, whether your church is able or willing to pay for it, or whether you have to sell your guitar to get there or whatever, you'll be glad for that investment because it will do something for your ministry. I want to talk also about the people that you work with. The people that you choose to minister with you can either multiply or divide your ministry. And they will. They'll do one or the other. The worst thing you can do when you're in need of more help in your youth ministry is to stand in the pulpit and say, all of you that are interested in working in youth ministry, meet me after the service down here. You're going to find the greater percentage of those people are going to be not only ineffective, but actually a burden on your ministry. And you're going to end up with most of them asking them, and it's a lot easier to get people in than it is to get them out. So I encourage you, go back to this step one that I talked about, prayer. Let God reveal to you. He knows who he wants working with you. There may be one person right now in the next month, or maybe 2 or 3, that he's wanting you to approach, maybe more than that. And he is very able to reveal to you who those people are. You know when you need help, and God knows it, and he's able to reveal those people to you. This has been the absolute key, I believe, for the success of our ministry, taking time to pray, and to hear from God, and to let him lead me into the people that he wants me to be using. When I do this, what I do is I get away with God, and I take our directory for the church, I take our college and career directory, every name that I can get a hold of, and I say, God, now as I go through this, you just reveal to me the people that you may want me to contact. And I'll contact those people, and usually I have a feeling in my spirit with those that are going to be for sure, that are going to say yes, and they're going to work. And some of the others I'm not totally certain of, but I'll approach them, and usually in those situations they say no, they can't anyhow or won't. It's so important to have people that are like-minded, that have the vision that you have, or at least a part of it, so that you can impart to them a greater vision and expand that for them. I suggest, let me share this first. There's one vital characteristic. I could talk about a lot of characteristics about effective youth ministers or youth workers in your congregation. I think there is one without which you can have a lot of things going for you, but you can have no results at all. There's one vital necessity, and I think you're probably ahead of me. You've got to have people that care enough about those kids that they're going to be willing to give time to them, to make a sacrifice of time. When you encourage or invite somebody to come in and work in your youth ministry, you are making an error if you give them the impression all they have to do is be there at the meetings. Anybody that comes to work in our youth ministry recognizes when they say yes, it's a commitment. It's a term commitment. We don't say for the next 60 years you're committed. We have usually by semesters, 3 semesters out of the year. But I'm finding by doing that, there's a much greater probability of them committing themselves to it and a solid commitment. And usually, if they're successful, if they have a good experience, they're going to extend that term after term. But they need to recognize it's more than just coming to the meetings. It is getting involved with the young people, caring about them. The most effective person that I have at this point working with my young people is a young man about 21 years old. He's single, and weekly he spends hour upon hour on the telephone with all of the kids that he's responsible for, several hours a week. He spends a great deal of one-on-one time with them, getting to know them, what their needs are, their problems, and discipling them. He has regularly parties and prayer meetings and things like this in his home. And this love demonstrated through this to these kids is recognized by the kids. They in turn love him and they respond to him. And when he says, hey, come on out to this special meeting tonight, they're there, every one of them. He has had one of the most effective ministries with our youth. I suggest you consider using college and career people. Now, you may not be in an area where you have a lot of college people around. If you do, use them. Also use your career people. This young man I mentioned is a career person. The reason I suggest that, there are a number of reasons. Number one, the generation gap that I talked about earlier is not as likely to be as much of a problem with your young people that are just removed from high school. They remember what it was like to be in high school, and so many times, just to be out, 5 or 10 years, it's hard to remember and to relate to those kids. The other factor is that things are different from a generation ago in school today. And in fact, they're very different, much more so than most people realize than even 5 years ago. So they are going to be a little bit more effective in most situations, not always, than your older people. I do use married couples and older folks as well, and they've been very effective. Another reason to use college and career people is that they are going to be growing at the same time. If your ministry is to youth, your ministry also is to these college and career people. And as they are ministering to the teens, they are going to be growing themselves. You cannot teach and minister without growing yourself. And so they are having an opportunity to grow through this. And this is important. any people that you're working with, you need to be giving of yourself to them. So you're having an opportunity then to feed into them what they're feeding to the other teenagers. So you are discipling, they are discipling. I use that word with reluctance because I realize it means different things to different people. But there is a growth process taking place from you to them and them to the teenagers. Another thing is the fact that you are in the process of replacing yourself as you teach them to do this. Now, I believe that no matter what ministry you may be in, whether you are a senior pastor, a youth pastor, evangelism pastor, whatever, we need to be replacing ourselves. I think we're really missing the boat when we just develop our own little ministry and do it ourselves. God wants us to be replacing ourselves. Now, sometimes there's a little bit of a fear that goes with that because we may feel like, well, what if we work ourselves out of a job? I trained this guy to do this job so good, and they see he's doing it better than I was. Goodbye, Roger. No, I think we realize that's not probable. But the more important thing is this. You're going to find that the more you do this, the more responsible position you're going to find yourself in, and the more authority, and not necessarily that's our goal, but you're going to find your ministry expanding as a result of this, because you will be responsible for that person. Right now, I am working with a young man, have been for the last 2 years, with a teen ministry. And he has developed this to the point where he is almost entirely responsible for it. I tell you, what a joy to see him developing, continue to reach out for more authority, to be able to do more, and to be able to freely give it to him, recognizing that he has developed the responsibility and the ability to handle it. He's going to be graduating in December from the university with a degree that could earn him a starting salary of up to $40,000 a year. Now, I want to share with you, I want you to understand what can happen as you work with these people on a close one-to-one basis. You need to impart to them the vision that God gave to you in those times of prayer. The result will be this kind of thing. This young man, though he has that ability, that opportunity or option to make that kind of money and continue a lay-type ministry, at this point his plan is to go ahead and get his degree, but as of December he's going to be working full-time with the teenagers at the Madison Gospel Tabernacle for, I guarantee you, it's not $40,000 a year. You will see your young men and women develop a vision for your ministry if you work closely with them. Right now I'm working with 6 young men and 1 young lady, and I am convinced that at least 4 of these people will be in full-time ministry, very possibly at the Madison Gospel Tabernacle. I want to talk also about your program. Now, obviously the key is people, and yet I've seen many ministries that are limited because of a lack of proper programming. For myself, in the past years, I found myself sort of rambling on from week to week, not really having any long-range goals or plans for my youth. The result was that I found my youth to be rather immature. Even some of those that have been around for a long time, I found a lot of immaturity, and I was very displeased with the results. I began to develop some programs, some of them before others. I want to share with you some of the programs that we have going now. Some of these things you may be able to adapt into your ministry, some perhaps not. But I want to share with you what we are doing, what is working for us. And I'm sure that you all realize no one can take one complete program from one ministry and drop it into another. So not everything that I share with you now will be able to be used by you. You need to seek God, and between you and Him, determine what can be used. We have a program for our junior high kids, 7th and 8th grade. Now, what I'm going to share with you began as a ministry to the 8th and 9th graders. However, because of the content and because of our change in society over the past few years, I am moving it down to 7th and 8th grade. Because of some of the areas we're studying, we find that by the time a kid gets into 9th grade, it's almost too late. And so we have found ourselves having to continually, and I think you probably experienced this too, move down further and further and further on some of these areas, such as sex education, music. You know, the 7th and 8th graders are the greatest supporters of the music industry in our country today. They purchase most of the music. The venereal disease, the abortion rate, the percentage increase is highest in these age groups, 7th and 8th grade now. So we need to address those areas. We can't keep on, as I said earlier, we have to continue to evaluate, to update our programs and take a look and see if it's meeting the needs, and if not, we need to change it. The program that we developed for the 7th and 8th graders, we call, really original, confirmation. Now, how many of you went through a confirmation class as a young person, whether Lutheran, Methodist, whatever? Some of you did. All right, if you did, you probably remember, as I do, it was one of the most boring experiences of my life. And as a result, we almost shudder just to hear the word again. Now, the reason we're using this name is twofold. Number one, over the years, I have lost, not a great many, but I've lost some young people because their unsaved parents who had been confirmed somehow had the idea this had something to do with their salvation experience or whatever, and asked us, when are my kids going to get confirmed? Well, we don't have confirmation. That's the last we saw those kids. Have any of you ever experienced that? All right, this satisfies that for many of those parents. It also gets many of them into the church on Confirmation Sunday. It may be the only time you'll ever see them. Before that, maybe again, but at least one Sunday on Confirmation Sunday, when we make a big deal out of it, we see those parents there usually. Also, in this confirmation program, it's a 9-month period during the Sunday school hour for us. And during 3 months of this time, we cover some issues that we invite the parents to be in there. You see, you can teach your kids on different areas, such as what kind of music they should or shouldn't listen to, whether dancing is okay, and all of those kind of issues. But if the parents do not support that, you're wasting your time. And most of you know that from experience. Because if the parents are not behind you, and it's not as though that the parents are the enemy. Most of them simply, even in the Christian homes, have had no teaching in these areas. I find very, very few parents, even those that have been raised in the church, that really know what they believe or why they believe it in many of these areas. Now, the confirmation class, one of the handouts, you'll find on one side a letter that I send out to the parents before it begins, encouraging them to get their kids into it. On the other side is a list of the content of that class. So I won't take time to elaborate on that now. As I said, a confirmation normally is a very boring experience. I think that it does not have to be that way, and in fact, I think the attendance statistics have proven that. In the years that I've been teaching this now, which we do every other year, 7th and 8th grade, we have had almost a 100% attendance straight through, which to me has been phenomenal. It tells me something, that these kids are at an age where they want some answers. No longer are they willing to say, I believe in God because my folks believe in God. They want to know, how do I really know that there is a God? How do I know that the Bible is the Word of God? Do we believe in 3 gods or 1? Those kind of things at this age are coming to these kids, and if they don't get answers, you're not going to see them around very long. Okay, so that's the program for junior high on Sunday. We also have a midweek service for them. We are in the process of developing a 2-year rotating program for Wednesday nights for our junior high kids. We're also now moving into the senior high, developing a 4-year rotating program for our senior high school kids. Now, I suggest that you consider doing something like this. There's a great deal of value in this. When I came on staff at the Tabernacle, I was the Christian Education Director as well as youth pastor. And one of the first things I did, I evaluated our material and found out the history of our Sunday school program. We had gone from David C. Cook materials to Scripture Press to this to that, and there was no continuity. Whoever happened to be doing it, it seemed like they were switching every couple of years. Whoever happened to be doing it had a better idea, so they would switch to something else. Well, I followed suit. I switched to Gospel Light for us. But the reason I did is I saw in the Gospel Light materials, and I'm not getting any kind of a pay for this plug, but I found in it a continuity that a young person could start out in kindergarten, and by the time they get through high school, they have had a good presentation of the gospel that is based on the predecessing years. And I feel like we need a program like that for our high school kids and our junior high kids that presents not just a study in the Bible, but practical application in their daily lives. When our kids come on Wednesday nights or Thursday nights, I want them to go to school the next day with something that they can put into their daily lives, something that will work for them, not just about Noah or some of those old Bible stories, which are great. They need to have that stuff, but many times they have a hard time applying those things in their daily lives. I suggest you get together with 1 or 2 or 3, not a great number, of your key people and sit down and start making a list of the key things that kids need to know before they get out of high school. The key things that kids need to know as junior high kids, and then the key things as senior high. You will find that you're going to be amazed at the number of areas that are vital for kids to know before they get out of school. And you're going to also probably be very disappointed and feel kind of bad because of the lack of communicating those things to your people in the A couple of examples here. Self-image, God's will. This is going to go too fast for you to try to put these all down. If you want to copy them later or get the tape, that's fine. Success, purpose, death, witnessing, habits. Habits, for example, do you know that there was a survey taken among young people? And the number one thing, the question was, if you could have an answer to anything, any question or problem in your life, what is the number one thing you'd like to have answered? And the great percentage of the kids answered they would like to know how to deal with bad habits. Cliques, drugs, peer pressure, the Holy Spirit, end times, music, dancing, dating, sex. Obviously, some of these areas you're not going to deal with one time for your high school kids and then wait 4 years and deal with them again. Some of these areas, for example, in dating, relationships, and things like that, I deal with those a couple of times a year. And that is such an important area, I usually take a number of weeks. I try to do it in a different way each time so that it's not so repetitious or boring. But obviously, when you take a young person and you share some of these areas with them, 6 months later, they're going to be at a different point in their life of application of those truths. The other thing is, if you have a program that God is blessing and it's growing, you're going to have new people. You're going to continually, we have all of the time new people coming in at different ages, 13-year-olds, 18-year-olds, that have absolutely no teaching whatever in this area. And they need that stuff, and they need it now. Not a year from now or 3 years from now. They need it now. One of the things we do every year, we have for several years, and that's not to say we always will, the Josh McDowell film, The Secret of Loving. We show that once a year to all different age groups. For this last year, for the first time, we showed it to the 7th and 8th grade. Now here he is speaking to college kids. I want to tell you, I didn't know if those 7th and 8th graders would just be goofing around or what. They were the most attentive group that I've had. They were fastened onto that screen, and they need that stuff. At their age now, they need to know some of those answers. A typical Thursday night for our teenagers. We have divided our midweek program for teenagers into 3 semesters, like with the school year, the fall, the spring, and then we have the summer semester. In the fall and spring semesters, we call it our life program, and I'll share with you a bit more on that later. Some of you may have heard of that term. Life, L-I-F-E, life is for everyone. We divided it into teams, 4 different teams, and they compete for points against each other. They get points by bringing visitors, by being faithful in Sunday school, attending prayer meetings, all kinds of things like this. You know, peer pressure can be a very positive thing. You can use it for good. There's tremendous pressure. The kids will be calling other kids, hey, come on out to the prayer meeting tonight. One of the results of going for the points, we have a trip at the end of each semester. This year, we're going, and there's some information in the handouts again. This year, in fact, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be going to St. Louis for 5 days, staying in a Riverside Mansion, going to Six Flags over St. Louis, the Gateway Arch, a riverboat trip, a whole bunch of things like that. And the team that gets the most points goes all expenses paid. The second team, half price, and the rest of them can go if they pay their own way. Well, believe me, they really get into this kind of stuff, and the result has been some good growth. Now, I realize there are some people that have problems with doing things like this. I don't have any problem with it at all, obviously. We have seen results from it. I tell you, I could talk a long time about this. I'm not going to take the time now. Our schedule on a typical Thursday night begins technically at 7 o'clock. However, we usually open the doors at about 6:30. And the reason we've gone to Thursday night is because we just got too many kids. We can't, with our facilities, do everything we'd like to at one time. And I'm sure all of you have problems with facilities, and you have to learn to juggle things around. So we have our teenagers downstairs on Thursday nights, our college and career people upstairs. So our teens start coming in about 6:30. We have the air hockey, foosball tables, a bunch of things like this set up for them so they can just fellowship and develop relationships with each other. You know, that's what really, it's not your teaching on the Trinity or something like that's going to be tying your kids in. It's their relationships with each other. It's that peer pressure. If they have friends there and can relate to them and are tied in, that's what's going to keep them. So we provide opportunity for them to develop relationships with each other. This goes on until about 7:20. We break down then into the small groups, the 4 groups, give them opportunity for planning, strategy, how to get more points and things like that. Then we will take an offering. They even get points for the offering. We'll have some testimonies. We'll have some choruses. We have a great variety of things that take place. We may preach. We may have a movie.
Is it all in the separate groups?
No, the groups are together. I'm sorry. The 4 groups come together for all of these things then. They only break into the small groups
20 till...
about 5 or 10 minutes.
I see.
However, occasionally we will let them stay in that group for 45 minutes to an hour and just share with one another to develop that team spirit and get to know each other better, pray for each other's needs and things like this. This past Thursday night, let me say this first. Something that's very important. If you allow, you've got to have your plan flow with teenagers. More so, I think this is important even in Sunday morning services. We always make out a schedule of exactly what's going to happen when and try to follow it. There has to be some flexibility. Nothing ever goes exactly as you plan it, but you need to have a plan. Yes?
Do you break the college as well as high school junior high into these groups?
Yes, I'll deal with that in just a moment with the college and career. Right now I'm talking about the high school. But it's important to have a plan, and we try to do this at least a day ahead of time. Who's going to do what on Thursday night as far as the details, taking the offering, announcements, all of those things, and I give a copy of what's going to take place to every person that's involved. Okay, again, it's important to be flexible because there will be things like that which happened to us this last Thursday night. Last Thursday night was our last meeting for this semester, for life, and a lot of the kids invited a lot of friends out. It was the last shot to go for all the points and see who's going to win. So there were a lot of new people there. We had 93 high school kids. We have 2 people in our church that we had not used yet in testimonies. One young man, not so young anymore, about 6 years ago, he was rated number 2 in the world in weightlifting. So we had him down there, some of the guys challenging him against, with lifting weights. We had another lady who was presently the Midwestern champion arm wrestler, and so she took on some of the girls. Now, we set up a stand for her to do the arm wrestling on, and she was going to do that first, and then they were both going to share what Christ had meant in their lives. And we set this up, and we took some of those weights to set on the bottom to balance it, or to keep it so it wouldn't tip over. And as she was about to start to do this, the weight fell off and broke her toe, her big toe. And she was in pain, she was in tears, she sat down, and to keep things going, the guy got up and began to share his testimony. Well, of course, everybody was really concerned about her. And I tell you, it's so important, as I said, we could have gone on with the program, although the program was kind of messed up anyhow. But the Spirit of God said, get some people together. There are a lot of people here there were kids there that had never been in a church before. He said, I want to demonstrate my power. And we prayed for that young lady, and God healed her right then and there. Prior to that, she was not able to even stand or even say her name. She was in a state of shock. God instantly healed her. She stood up, walked over, and spoke for about 10 minutes to those kids. Left from there and drove a stick shift home to where there was a Bible study going on, shared the testimony there. Let me tell you the result of that. We invited those kids then. I was able to communicate to those kids, look, if God cares about a broken big toe, how much does he care about your home that's breaking up, or about your problems at school, and this and that? We had a great percentage of those kids come forward for prayer that were in tears. One young lady said she had been on drugs for several years. She hadn't cried for 3 years, and she was just bawling like a little baby. God did a mighty work that night because we were willing to be a little bit flexible. But I want to come back. You need to have a plan for your evening services. Okay, the college and career. We got here about 20 minutes late, so I'm going to go on a bit, or at least until they kick me out, I think. I've got some valuable material, I feel, here that I want to share with you. We also meet on Thursday nights. About 2 years ago or so, of course, we have the University of Wisconsin there, and so we have some opportunities there that some of you may not have, but we had a young man there that was involved in the Navigators. He was in the leadership position of training leaders to train other leaders. And one of our young men shared with him the Holy Spirit. He received the infilling of the Holy Spirit and immediately became very dissatisfied with where he was at in his involvement in ministry and plugged in with us now. He's one of the young men I'm working with now. He's been very effective in developing our youth program for our college and career. We meet on Thursday nights. We start at 7 o'clock. We go until 9:30 with the college and career, only 2 hours with the teens. That seems like a long time, and I was against it at first until I continually got more and more requests to go longer. And with the content of the program, we really do need it. Well, we begin with all coming together in the sanctuary, just some brief announcements, a very brief time of worship. They all break down into small groups, guys with guys, girls with girls. They're permanent groups, and they're studying the Design for Discipleship series. Now, if you decide to use this material, don't use it with your teenagers. It's designed for adults. Okay, if any of you would care to discuss any of that further, I'd sure be glad to talk to you about it, but we found it very effective. We've been in it for a year and a half. We just did an evaluation last week. We were in the middle of college exams, so we only got 55 of them in from the college and career people, but there were only 2 that were in any way critical. Almost unanimously, they said there had been tremendous growth in their life as a result of it, and we have seen it. I've seen many people that I never would have expected to see leadership coming out of that have developed into real leaders. Okay, I want to talk now finally about materials. We need to learn to feel free to borrow other people's materials. I'm not talking about plagiarism or anything illegal or anything like that, but there are a lot of people that have good ideas, and we need to take advantage of them. Example, the program that we're using for our Thursday night teenagers called Life. About a year ago, we purchased a program from the Train Depot company called Life. It cost us $200. Okay, we're about 20% of our content of our program is life material. It's good stuff, and I suggest you investigate it, check it out. There are many other resources that we use too, though, to put this together. You'll never find any one perfect program that you can buy and just go there on Thursday night and use it. Even this 20% that we use, we have to modify a lot. But we need to be getting in other resources that we can use for this. Now, you may be thinking, I don't have the resources to purchase. I don't have the money to buy these kind of things. Let me just challenge you in this area. Now, it's true we have a lot of people working in this, but in the last 4 months, God has spoken to our youth group in this area. Our church recently, because of a building program, ended up with a $30,000 unexpected deficit. And things, as you know, are tight all over. God spoke to us and said the youth, not the adults, the youth of the church are to take care of this debt. In the last 4 months, they have raised $17,000 towards this deficit, and I believe that within the coming months it'll be completely wiped out. In addition to that, they have raised over $4,000 for the youth fund for doing things like this and for trips like to St. Louis. You can do it. There's one of the handouts here that can help you plan out one of the types of activities. There are a lot of things you can do to raise money and get kids motivated, especially if they realize that it's going towards something worthwhile. I wonder how much time we have left. I think they're going to be pushing us out in a few moments. A couple of things I've got to run by here. Pick up some materials. There are just so many things around. I wish I had time to read to you something out of here that can just be fun. There are so many fun things you can do with your kids, and kids like to have fun. Adults like to have fun, don't you? How many of you have ever heard of the WC story? All right, if you haven't, you might want to take a moment to read it when we're through here. There are just so many things like that that you can do with getting materials. Group magazine, there's a copy of it there for you. I got that because I feel that is one of the best today that you can use. I almost file the whole thing from cover to cover every time I get it. Now, you'll find some things in there occasionally maybe you don't like. I think they do some reviews of records, even secular records sometimes in there. Well, so what? Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Take advantage of what you can use and throw the rest away. Evangelism, there are a lot of things. Your young people need to be involved in evangelism, in reaching out, and there are a lot of things that you can do to aid them in doing this. There are many different programs that you can plan. One of them is the Spring Spectacular. This is our annual Spring Spectacular. You got one of these. We sent one of these about a month ago to every young person that had attended within the last year. And we even get some kids that haven't been here for months that come out for this, and as a result get plugged back in. You can see some of the content. It's an all-night activity, and we make it super. The original idea for this was to compete, in a sense, with the spring proms, the dances where all the kids go and oftentimes do a lot of other activities afterwards. We feel like this has gone far beyond that stage of replacing that, into something very, very positive, not just an alternative. A Christmas banquet, that's something we do every year. We won't take time to talk about some of that potential, but there are a lot of different kinds of banquets. Kids like banquets. But don't get in a rut. Just recently, we were about to have our spring Valentine banquet, and I discovered most of the kids didn't even want it. So we didn't do it. We had a tobogganing party that night, and they loved it. Movies, there are a lot of movies that you can get into. While you're considering this, how many of you have ever rented the movie The Cross and the Switchblade? Last month, we showed that movie to about 150 kids on video. The total cost for us, renting the video machine and hooking it up to 2 television sets so they could all see it, was $26. There is a breakthrough in video today that can save you a lot of money on renting films. Concerts. We have a facility that is fantastic for this kind of thing. You may be in a situation where you might have to rent a gym or something like that. We've had an average probably every couple of months of having a concert. A lot of the different major ministries around the country. We have seen many young people come into the church as a result of this. We are rather selective as to who we bring in. I feel it's important not to just get somebody up there that's going to draw. Recently we had somebody scheduled who's one of the biggest names around, and about a month before they were scheduled to be there, we discovered that there was a serious moral problem in their life, and had been for some time. And we felt that we had to cancel them out. We did. This person has gone on ministering, even though this is going on, and I know of other churches and organizations that have brought them in simply because they knew they were bringing the crowd. I feel that God is not going to honor that. On the other hand, God did honor He honored our canceling that and brought in a far more effective ministry for us. Be careful who you bring in. Resurrection 82, this is something I could spend a good long time talking about, having coordinated it for the last several years now. Last year we had about 6,000 people there. The budget for that is this year somewhere around $35,000 to $40,000. There are many things that can come out of this. We have many families that have come into the church through this ministry. We have seen hundreds upon hundreds of people saved, healed, filled with the Spirit. The other major thing in this, and I'm not suggesting that you start a major one necessarily like this, but maybe a one-day thing in your city. Rent the football stadium or something. You will find we have 20-some committees that are involved in this, putting it together. 85%, I would say, are people from within the church, and I have had so many people say it's been one of the most wonderful experiences annually for them to get to know and work side by side with other people in these different areas. Prayer meetings are a vital part of a youth ministry. Don't neglect that. They need to happen often. It's not ideal to take your junior highs and put them together with the college and career people for a prayer meeting. They need to have them on their own and learn how to minister, although you do need to do both combined sometimes.
Roger, maybe I give a suggestion. Maybe we could continue this at a free time. I would like to rather have you pressed.
Thank you.
I'd rather come back and sit with you an hour later on.
I'll tell you what, they're not pushing me out yet, but I think if I can have about 2 more minutes, I can wrap up some of the key points for us, and then I'd be glad to meet with any of you later, if you like. There are some things that can be done that I think need to be done in every youth group. We have had a real problem with relationships in our youth group. Recently, a young lady, probably 27 years old, sat in my office and wept because she did not have any close friends of the opposite sex. I don't think she's necessarily interested in getting married. She simply wants some friendship. And so we have begun something that I have toyed with in the back of my mind for years, and I suggest you consider doing something like this. We had a Valentine banquet recently for our college and career people, and I talked to our college and career Sunday school class, and I said, how many of you would be willing to do this? What I'd like to do is have all of you submit your names, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a guy's name, I'm going to take out 2 guys' names and 2 girls' names and put them all in the hat, and those are your dates for the night. Now that's pretty radical, but I want you to know almost 100% of the kids responded, and it was the most successful banquet that we have ever had. Now you cannot do something like that without training them, preparing them first on what dating is really supposed to be all about in God's eyes. Not a romantic thing, but developing a relationship, getting to know the family of God. And this is just a really important dimension. I would enjoy talking further with you, any of you individually, about this area. I think I can share some things with you that would be helpful in developing that. Since that time now, just recently, we have begun something where they continue to put in their names, and we have ongoing social things where about 12 to 18 young people are invited every couple of weeks, and we have a rotating system, to a party, a home party, where they have a time of sharing and a time of just having fun together and things like that. We are seeing fantastic things happen in relationships with our young people. I feel like I have probably touched on most of the vital things that I wanted to communicate to you today, and I think we had probably better quit at this point. Thank you.